In this video, we're going to continue looking at derivatives of inverse hyperbolic functions and also put it all together relating to some other topics. So let's differentiate r sine 4x using the chain rule. Remember, the derivative of r sine x, if we go back and consult our cheat sheet, is 1 over root x squared plus 1. So the derivative of r sine 4x is going to be 1 over the square root of 4x squared plus 1 times the derivative of 4x, which is 4, giving us 4 over the square root of 16x squared plus 1. Bit of product rule here. There's our u, there's our v. So we've got u v dash, so it's x times the derivative of r tanh. Consult our cheat sheet. That's 1 over 1 minus x squared. So we're getting x over 1 minus x squared plus u dash v, which is 1 times r tanh x. So relatively straightforward to apply what we know and link it to chain rule and product rule. Okay, let's have a go at the equation of the tangent to r tanh at the point where x is a half. So we'll need the derivative. So the derivative of r tanh x is 1 over 1 minus x squared. Now, when x equals a half, the derivative is 1 over 1 minus a half squared. So 1 over 3/4, and that's 4/3. So we also need the y value at that point. So the y value is going to be r tanh of a half, which is half ln 1 plus a half over 1 minus a half. Remember, that just is what the r tanh function is. So what is that? That is 3 over 2 divided by 1 over 2 is 3, so that's half ln 3. So now I can find the equation of the tangent. It's y minus the y value equals the gradient, 4/3, times x minus the x value. Now, of course, an exam question would specify what form it wants the answer in, but let's just expand and get everything onto one side. We'll have y equals 4/3 x minus 2/3, and then add the half ln 3 to both sides. And there is at least one version of the formula for the equation of the tangent, that curve, when x equals a half. All right, let's have a go at this one. So a curve is defined parametrically as x is 2r tanh theta, and y is theta squared minus a half, and theta exists between minus 1 and 1. Let's find the coordinates of the stationary point. Now, the stationary point, recall, with parametric equations is where dy by dx is 0, but dy by dx is dy by d theta over dx by d theta. So if that's 0, it does imply that dy by d theta is 0 as well. Now there's a tiny bit of nuance there, which is if it turns out that dx by d theta is 0 at the same point, then sometimes this isn't enough. Very rarely asked questions that kind of force you to really grapple with that. We will do at the end, but let's just solve dy by d theta equals 0. So dy by d theta is 2 theta minus 1, and that's 0 when theta is a half. Now we could just check just to see that dx by d theta isn't also 0 at that point. So what is dx by d theta? Well, dx by d theta is 2 times the derivative of r tanh, which is 2 over 1 minus x squared, no, theta squared. And yeah, when theta is a half, we do not get 0 or anything weird. So, by the way, you don't actually need to do this step in the exam. I'm just showing you that when theta equals a half, what do we get? 2 divided by 3/4, that's 8/3, I think. My point is simply that dy by d theta equals 0 is enough to be really over the top about it, this is a necessary but not sufficient condition for a stationary point. Meaning, if it's a stationary point, it's definitely going to be the case that dy by d theta equals 0, but sometimes dy by d theta can be 0 and dx by and yet dy by dx is not 0. That happens if you get dy by d theta and dx by d theta both being 0 at that point. Okay, where were we? We have dy by d theta is 0 when theta is 2, and so the coordinates of the stationary point are, we just need to sub it in here. So x is 2 artanch of a half, so that's 2 times a half ln 1 plus a half over 1 minus a half. So the 2 and the half cancel and we just get ln 3. Okay, that's fine. And then y is a half squared, which is a quarter, minus a half, which is minus a quarter. And so the coordinates of the stationary point are ln 3 minus 1/4. Okay, last one. Find the first 3 non-zero terms of the Maclaurin series of cosh x. Okay, so we need to find a bunch of derivatives. So if f of x is cosh x, then f of 0 is cosh of 0, which is 1. There's our first non-zero term. The first derivative of cosh x is sine x, and sine of 0 is 0. Now look what happens. The second derivative, we're just back to cosh. So we're just going to be oscillating cosh, sine, and so on. And this makes it very, very easy to find our terms because it's just going 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Now, just for completeness, let's just spell this out. The third derivative is sine. The fourth derivative is cosh. And the third derivative at 0 is 0, and the fourth derivative at 0 is 1. So now we've got our 3 non-zero terms. We can say that cosh x is, well, it's 1 plus 0x plus 1 times x squared over 2 factorial, just over 2, plus 0x cubed plus 1 x to the 4 over 4 factorial. So here are the first 3 non-zero terms in the Maclaurin series. Now, some of you may have noticed that this looks very similar to the Maclaurin series of cos x. That would be a good insight if you had it. The Maclaurin series of cos x goes 1 minus x squared over 2 plus x to the 4 over 24. And that's because these terms go 1 minus 1, 1, because derivatives of trig terms go cos minus sine, minus cos, sine, and so on. So it's the same, except this one's all positive rather than alternating positive negative. So a little challenge for you. Can you think of an interesting connection between cos and sine that relates their Maclaurin series and involves imaginary numbers? I'm going to leave you on that bombshell, and we will return to that right at the end of this chapter. Okay, that's all for now. See you in the next video.